Hey everyone, Joellen here, and welcome to Washington Watercolor. So for today's lesson, I thought I would paint this beautiful sheep. There are a couple things I really like about this photograph. I really like its presence and its angle, the curve of its neck to its head. I also love the backlighting that we have here on the sheep. There's little bits of light being caught here and this beautiful diffuse background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly draw this out. I think I'll take the sheep and just move it slightly over so it's not as centered. And this kind of heavy branch, I may remove that. I think it really takes away from the form of the sheep. Okay, so let's see. Here we go. So first I just want to indicate the land in the foreground, and I see that as being fairly level. I can always slope it down a little bit here and there, but I'll start with a level line, and this is a very small portion compared to everything else that is above. I think I would like the sheep's head to be a little off center. So let's just move it over slightly, and then I'll think about the curve I'm seeing of the body. So just some general shapes. I'll just fast forward through this part. And now I'm going to apply some masking fluid. So over here, I have Pebeo drawing gum, which I like to use, and I like it because it's so fluid and it's tinted, so I can see it when it's on the paper. And over here, I have this soapy solution that is mostly water, a couple drops of dish soap, and a couple drops of ammonia. No real big recipe to it, but it seems to work when I am applying masking with my brush. And never use your good brush, just in case the masking sticks to your brush and somehow you kind of wait too long and it dries on it. All right, so we're going to treat it in the solution. We're going to tap a little bit off. We'll poke it into our masking, and I'm just going to come around the perimeter of the sheep. Great. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of my masking and I am going to pour just a little bit of this into this plastic tray. And then I have my favorite toothbrush, and I'll dip that in my solution. And I'll take off any extra water. I'm going to put that into my masking, and hopefully I won't get a big blob that comes out. But then, just like with last week's lesson, in the leaves, I'm just going to spatter this a little bit. And I'm doing this because this will give me some irregular little dots, and I think it will look really nice. So that was it. I think it looks successful, and let's come in there and rinse the brush, and I'll be right back. Okay, so if you are painting along with me, you want to make sure that your masking is completely dry. And what I like to do is go in and just tap it and then look at my hand just to see if I have any masking that's come off. So it seems like it is dry. Also, I have some runaway little spatters here and there, and I want to take those off. And you want to wait, or I want to wait until it is completely dry before I try to rub them off. Let's just go through. Great. Perfect. I think that looks great. Okay. Now we're going to work on the background. So here I have my Princeton Neptune brush, and I really like it because it holds a lot of water. And I want to take this and just wet my paper. I can bring everything right down to the bottom, but I don't want to wet inside the sheep. So we'll avoid that, but we'll wet everything else. Can even come around this way. And by wetting the paper, what it does, it's just going to buy me time as I am dropping in colors from my background. Okay. Not perfect, but I think good enough for what we're doing. And now I'm going to grab a little bit of my Winsor lemon, and it's a little bright, but I'll just drop it into some places in the background where I feel I see some yellow. And next, I'm going to grab a little bit of my sap green. And again, I'll just randomly drop that into the background. And I just want the paint to really mix on its own. Good. Okay, a little bit outside of the box, I will pick up some of my Winsor violet or purple, and I'll drop that in as well. In the background, there are some lines that really describe the land. I see some, maybe some like squared off patches of land, grass versus trees. So try to get some diagonal lines going on and just indicate that a little bit. Okay, I feel like that's looking nice. Okay, I'm going to go for some burnt sienna. And we'll add that to that middle ground. Yep. Here we go. I think that's looking, that will look good. And now let's rinse that off, and again, maybe a little more purple, maybe a little bit more pigment with that. I did go out of line, but I'll clean that up later on. I'm not too worried about it. I think that's looking nice. And we'll add a little bit of perylene green, and you can pick up whatever colors you like and that you see in this. Really down here we have a bright green again. And I'm even going to pick up a little bit of my Prussian blue and add that into the foreground. And I really want these colors just to mix together, kind of a happy way. Okay, before we get too far, while everything is still wet, I'm going to come in with my pointed brush, pick up some of that, and just get into the little crevices that I avoided or missed. And my brush is not wet at all. That's looking good. And you can tilt your paper. I feel like that will be really helpful, and you can make it run however you see your paint moving or you want it to move. Okay. I think we're doing okay there. And I really like some of these areas that I have. Let me pick up my brush again. Maybe I'll come back into some burnt sienna and just kind of depict the perspective of the distant ground. And again, maybe a little bit more Winsor blue over this area. I think that's really nice. Now, I'm going to pick up a little bit of my sepia, and I'm just going to tap that into the foreground here. And we'll work on the foreground more, but for now, I just want to get that really nice blurry edge that we see. I'm going to come through a little bit outside of the box, but I'm going to pick up some perylene red and I'll tap that in. Rinse that off. Maybe come back into my sepia. I just want that foreground to be fairly dark. And we can make it darker later on, but it's easier now if we kind of get a nice base put in. I'm going to quickly rinse my brush, and where I see the background meeting the legs, I'm just going to soften that up a little bit. And then I'll come back in and add some more. And any colors that you see, just grab them and go. You know, I have this, I love quinacridone gold, so pretty. And we can add some of that into the foreground. And I really love when colors just mix together on the paper. Looking really pretty. More browns, maybe even poking along this edge here just to have that softer value contrast. That will help to really show the distance and that the animal is up on a hilltop. Looking good. I'm going to come through, rinse off my brush, come through, and maybe just lift a little value out right here. I'm just scooping and wiping the wet paint. And again, that will give me a nicer edge, maybe coming into this area and doing the same thing. So it's really easy to overdo this, and you need to know when to quit when you're ahead, right? And I don't want to form a blossom. I feel like I could come back in and drop things into my background just to get that value a little bit darker, but I may want to do that in a second wash. So let's just let this dry up and we'll see what we have. Okay, my paper is dry and I just really love the colors. I just love how they mix together. I love that Prussian blue in that area and the purple over here. And even these little bits of blossoms that I have going on down here, I just feel it looks really nice. However, what I originally loved about this photograph is just that amazing and beautiful light that we see happening right here on that backlighting of the sheep right here. And I'm not going to be able to get that dramatic look unless I go in and make my background up here darker. So boohoo, right? I have to go in and just darken that a little bit. Now, if I were to wet this with a brush, I would churn up the paint, and so I might lose that effect. So my thought is to spray it, and unfortunately I will spray in here, but it is protected by the masking, and just to spray it and then to just drop in some darker color just in the top third. So let's see what we can do. So let's just give this a nice mist because we want our paint to spread in a nice even way, and I feel like that looks pretty good, fingers crossed. And now we'll come in, and I put some yellow in there already, so let's come in with something a little bit darker, like my Perylene green here, and I feel that combined with some yellows and some purples will be really nice. Well, that is a commitment to dark, isn't it? All right, we'll put it in. We'll see where it goes. What can go wrong, right? What can go wrong with it? Let's just drop that in. And we'll bring it down a little bit. That'll look pretty. We don't want it all to be green, so we have to just kind of look and see if we can find other colors going on. So maybe I'll come in with a little bit of purple and just dot that in. And again, I want this to be nice and soft and diffused. So it's really important that that's wet. And maybe we'll continue with some purple over here. And I can't forget these little spots inside, right? There. And this is really on a nice diagonal here. Good. And then I do see yellow. Just live boldly. Just dot that in. Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of these colors will kind of neutralize each other. So if you think that the color I'm putting down is a little garish, when it mixes with another color on its own, it just becomes softer. So you still have a hint of that color, but there's just a nice prettiness and softness and really a mystery to it. Okay, let's grab some of our burnt sienna of that color, and we'll see if we just tap some of this in and bring it down just slightly. And I think that that will really give this a nice a nice contrast. Okay. Now, if I notice that there's a hard edge, maybe my squirt bottle didn't get there, I can just drag along with a damp, clean brush. All right, perfect. And good. I think that's looking pretty good. And while we're here, we might as well just go back to that foreground and just continue to add in some darker values here. When you get this darkness in the foreground, it really helps to create that whole background and create atmosphere and push everything back. And again, for you, you can always tilt your paper. It's nice when you can make one area just nicely run into the other area. You can soften that just a little bit with a damp brush. And again, we're going to work on this a little bit more. We have all that masking that's here. Maybe I'll take a little bit more gold and tap it in. And some of my Prussian and just let it mix. Okay, I think I'll go back in and take some of that Prussian blue. I'm going to add just a little bit up top. I think that will look nice. Okay, so now it's just a waiting game, so we'll wait for this to dry up. If you have any type of buildup here, just make sure you're just absorbing it, taking it up a little bit, because it will cause a blossom, and so you just want to be mindful of that. Okay, so my paper is fully dry. And now I'm going to remove all of my masking. So I'll use a rubber cement pickup and I will carefully just take my masking off. This could take a while, so bear with me. Okay, I think I have it all, but what you want to do is just run your hand over your painting just to see if you can feel if there's any masking left. And you could just take off the sheep if you wanted to do that and then get to the foreground, but I think it's just easier to take everything off. And I'm going to clean my palette because I want to have just a little bit of an off-white color. So I'll pick up just a little bit of my Winsor lemon, and I just want to put the faintest wash, over the sheep. I don't really have to worry about the horn. I'll get to that later. but when I look at the area where I see the light hitting, it isn't a stark white, it's a nice warm color, a warm white. And with yellow, you do have to be really careful. Less is more, and a little bit goes a long, long, long way. I think that's pretty good. Okay, nice. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my Winsor orange, red shade, and this is still wet. And where I see the light hitting the neck and running down the body, I feel that it picks up on the edge a little bit of an orange glow. So let's just go and put that in. Okay, so we have some nice orange. I don't really see it up in the head, maybe just a little bit. I'm next going to go right into some burnt sienna, because the color that I see next is a little bit more of a brown orange. And I'll just follow that line. I might poke just a few dabs out into the wool here. Just to give it a little bit of light texture. Okay. I'm going to go back to my Prussian blue. Nope, I'm changing my mind for that. Let me wipe that right out. A little bit too yellow. I'll go into my ultramarine blue. I think that will be much better. I'm going to take some water off of my brush. And again, I'll start to tap down into this area, following the shadow. I think much better color. I think I'll just carry that blue all the way through. And then even up here. I am working as fast as I can. I just don't want any of this to dry up on me. Okay. I'm going to grab a little bit of quinacridone magenta, because there are areas here where I feel it picks up a little bit more pink or purple. Maybe even in the ear. I think that's looking pretty good. Like this could get softened. I'm going to grab a little more ultramarine blue. If it mixes with some of the purple or pink, it's fine. And just coming down this little edge right here, give it a little bit of a darker value. And let's just bring that around. Maybe we see a little bit more darkness under the jaw. Good. And with just my little brush, I'll continue to darken things. I think I'll take some of my blue and mix it with just some of my sepia to get a little bit more neutral color, but darker, just because I want to get that underbelly. And I can see my paper starting to dry up. So I'll come through with a damp brush and just push things along. Where that underbelly is, I'll come through with some burnt sienna just right on the edge and give it a little bit more warmth there. Let's come back up. A few little spots up here indicate the eye. I'm going to indicate the nose, just like that, and maybe just a little bit of the mouth. We'll curl this right around for that horn. Oh, that's looking good. A little colorful. That's okay. And within the horn, we'll come back in, grab a little bit of burnt sienna, and just tap that in there to give it a variety of color. All right, I'm going to grab a little bit more of that purple. I feel like the legs just aren't dark enough. Let's grab some of our orange. Just work that inner part of the ear. I really like that a lot. Okay, let's let this dry up and we'll move away from this. We'll move into the foreground and then we'll go back. To create some of the forms in the foreground, I'm going to dip into my burnt sienna first. And some of these twigs I can just fill in. Really a test in patience sometimes, right? We'll just get those filled in a little bit. I feel that's starting to look nice. And I'll pick up some sepia as well. And just see if I can, let's just see, putting in some darker twigs. And as I'm putting these in, maybe I can give them some texture, some places. And then where I give them that little bit of thickness, I can come through with just some drops of water and let that spread on its own. So let's come through. Maybe there are bigger ones that come from way up in the foreground. And then just adding in a little bit of water to soften it and give it a much more natural look. Let's get some more going. This is hard because it's really easy to make all of this look stiff or manufactured. So even having a little piece of practice paper and practicing this before you commit to your beautiful painting is probably a good idea. Yeah, that's looking good. I'll just continue, small brush. Trying to think about natural directions you would see. Like that's looking pretty good. Let's see what else we can do. Maybe I like those little bits poking up, kind of hugging the sheep. Little bits of water. And then even over here, maybe one or two on that side, just really gives it a nice look. Let's have fun. We'll do a little bit of negative space painting. So if I want to have a lighter branch or a twig, I can paint around it and then add some water and just blend it. So now this actually is lighter and starts to show up. Not sure what I think about that, but I will try just a few. I think that was too close together there. Yeah, that looks good. Just like that. And then quickly connect with water and soften the edges like that. And we get a lighter little twig. Looks good. I think I'll come through just a little bit more. Maybe I'll come through with some of my orange and just dot in some places. And then we'll just blend these in just a little bit. I think that looks good. Okay, I can probably pick on this forever and ever. Just a little purple. And we'll put a little purple on the opposite side. Okay, so I'm just going to move back up here and a couple of things before we're done. I really want to find and soften the shoulder here. I feel like it got a little lost. I'll just scrub that shape right out. That's much better. And just play around with that form just a little bit more. And where we have a harder edge, I'll just soften that in some places. I'm going to take my smaller brush and I'll grab some of my ultramarine. Grab a little bit of my sepia. I want this to be fairly thick paint. And I really feel like the eye could be a little bit darker. We'll add more of a darkness to that. I feel in some areas the nose could be a little bit more prominent. And maybe into the mouth. I'm looking for a balance between my foreground and my sheep. Can make the horn just a little bit darker. Everything's a little bit, right? We'll just drag this right down. So I feel like this has a better relationship with that now. Possibly as the ear folds just right here. A little bit of dark put there. The inner part of the ear on this side. Oh, so much to do. And I like the markings that are on the sheep. So maybe coming back through and getting some of the unique marks that we see. And I don't want those to be too prominent, so I can come through with some water just to go and soften it in areas. And I feel so the eye socket will round down this way. All the little details that we can find. Underneath the jaw, we can get that darker, but then we want to soften it right away, and that will separate, create the jaw and separate it from the neck. Just picky things now, right? And you could decide with the wool or fur how much you want to depict. Do you want more of that texture? If you do, you can come in with a little bit of color or value slightly darker than what's there. Not too dark though, just to create that. I'll go back in and pick here. And you can tell I'm a portrait artist because I will never be satisfied with that face. Maybe where we see this, and just try to indicate the movement that we see going on. So much to do. Perfect. Okay. I think we're done for today. I hope you painted along and I hope you had a lot of fun, and I will see you next time. Please remember to like and subscribe, comment too. Thanks for watching.